Grab your drinks and have a seat. It's time for serial killers.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm T.
And I'm Jay. And we're here to talk about
Serial
your favorite
killers.
subject, serial killers.
We are here to talk about serial killers, so if you don't want to hear about it, goodbye.
And what we're drinking. But before we get into that,
Yeah.
we just almost had a murder on our hands in our own house.
Oh my God.
We're sitting downstairs doing T's birthday stuff because it is her birthday, so happy birthday.
Thanks.
And we hear some rustling coming from upstairs.
Like scratching.
Yeah, and we're all downstairs. So we're like, what the fuck? So
The dogs are like, keep looking
Yeah.
at the door.
So we go creeping up there, and it almost sounds like something's crumpling papers. Now, way back in the day, we had a bird come down the chimney and was flying around our house. Well, so we go check the chimney because we're like, okay, that's the first check. Nothing. And we're like, okay, maybe like we searched around the whole upstairs. Doors were shut, so it had to be out in the open space. We see nothing. We peek up into the chimney, and it's not a straight shot, so you can only see so far. So I decided to get up on the roof and look from the top down. Everything's clear. No birds, no sounds, no nothing. So we're like, all right, well, we hear no more noise, so I guess we're okay. And the whole time my son's recording this on the camera we have, our security camera in
Like a Ring.
our living room. Yeah. So he's hoping something funny will happen, which doesn't. So fast forward like an hour later, we hear our dog upstairs whining. And we're like, what the hell? What is she whining at? And we're like, what if there's something upstairs? So we go up there, and she's like staring behind. We have this like corner shelf. She's like staring in the gap. And I was like, uh-oh, I think we do have a bird, and I think it's in here. So we took the dog downstairs because if she would have seen that bird, she's not a fan of birds. She always wants outside to, as we like to put it, play with them. But we all know the truth, what would happen. But so we get her downstairs, and we move the shelf, and lo and behold, it's a little tiny bird. Not sure what kind, little brown bird. And we have the front door open, which is literally right around the corner of where this bird is at. So what's it do? It takes flight and goes towards the sliding glass door in the back and just drills it. Drops like a rock. And I was like, no way. But as I got close to it, it started flapping its wings again. So I'm like, okay, maybe it just stunned itself. Hopefully, not too seriously injured. So we were able to kind of corral it behind the curtain and with a broom kind of push it a little bit. Very
Try
gently.
to help it out the window or out the back door.
And we opened up the back door, and it flew off and took off all crazy. But yeah, it was
so sad.
yeah, it was all our.
But also, if we wouldn't have found it, like Jay was saying, he's like, what would have like it was in our living room.
Yeah,
like
if we were just sitting there watching TV on our phones or whatever, and this bird just like bombs your head.
Yeah. And don't be fooled. If any of you listen to Crime Bitches, Sierra is, as you know, she's in the veterinarian field. She is a vet assistant, and she works in like with animals, and she is deathly afraid of birds. But yet her ass was upstairs helping,
hiding behind a blanket.
Hey,
screaming.
She was at least there. I wasn't even there.
I think she just wanted to see the action. If that bird would have went towards her, we probably would have had the cops called. She would have screamed that loud.
I was half expecting it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that was our adventure. And then we had to come and record this podcast. We're not recording it in the morning like we sometimes do. We're actually recording it at night. So.
Yeah. And after all that excitement, basically, I'm just drinking a nice ice cold water with some Crystal Light in it for flavor.
What flavor?
Black cherry is this one. So, definitely have like a black cherry flavor to it.
Isn't it black cherry pomegranate or something?
It might be.
Because I thought I saw pomegranate.
Yeah, so it might have a little bit of pomegranate in there, but yeah, just a little flavored water. Mix it up a little bit. But after that excitement with the bird, I didn't want to have any caffeine.
Well, and to be fair, you know, you're like not running around, but it's a little stressful and whatever. I'm actually just drinking water too, to be honest with you. And that's not because I ran after a bird, because I most definitely did not. It's because I have already had my coffee for today. And so we just happen to be filming this when I'm no longer drinking coffee. So apologies, but I will tell you what I had this morning. This morning, I did actually drink a Nespresso pod. That's the strawberry white chocolate one, the one that's not my most favorite, but we only have one more of those pods left. But just so everybody knows, the way that I do my drinks in the morning, like that, if I do like an espresso, which is pretty much what I do every morning, I like close my eyes. We have them like in a basket, and I like close my eyes and I just pull up whatever I'm going to pull out. And that is what I drink. So even though the strawberry white chocolate was not one of my most favorites, that's why I'm still drinking it.
But we got to get rid of it one way or another.
Yeah, exactly. We kind of pretty much drink the same things always. And then once in a while, I'll drink some Americanos that you also can make with your Nespresso machine, just for those of you out there who have one.
All right. So a little boring on the drinks, a little exciting.
We're totally boring on the drinks.
A little exciting on the stuff beforehand, but now let's get to the fun part.
The reason why you're here.
Yep. Who are we talking about today?
We are talking about Tony Charles Costa. So Tony Costa is nicknamed the Cape Cod Vampire.
Well, that's just creepy right there.
There is a little bit of creepiness to this. He has 4 to 8 victims. His murder dates are 1966 to 1969. The location of his murders are California, Massachusetts, and New York. His method of murder is shooting, drugging, and drowning. And some characteristics of his murders are necrophilia, dismemberment, and mutilation. A little bit of background on Tony. So Tony was born August 2nd, 1944 in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And actually, he was just a baby when his father was killed in World War II. Now, his mother goes on to get married again and finds, another husband. And Tony was also described as a spoiled little boy who was never punished for anything by people who knew him as a child. They were like, his mom never.
I didn't realize how far it was facing down, and I think it wasn't going to pick up my voice very well.
Never punished him, like ever. Now, at the age of 7, Tony actually goes to his mom and he tells her that this man is coming into his room at night. And his mom's like, what the fuck? And she's like, can you tell me who this guy is? And he actually ends up telling her that it's his stepfather. Now, quick pause here. I don't know if his stepfather was going in there for any specific reason. I would be led to believe that he was sexually molested. Not sexually, that he was molested. That is my belief, is why his stepfather was going into his bedroom. But nowhere in any of the information that I looked up did it say why or if he was molested or anything like that. Now, by the age of 16 or 17, those are the 2 different ages that I found, Tony had actually entered into an apartment in Massachusetts, which was like one of his neighbors. And he is leaning over a teenage girl that lives in this apartment as she sleeps. Now, in that moment,
we've already hit the creepy part.
Now, in that moment, she screams. She wakes up and screams. And he literally books his fucking ass out of the apartment as fast as he can. Now, he does go back to that same house a few days later, and he actually tries to grab that same girl and drag her ass down the stairs of the apartment complex and out the door. To which he's actually stopped by some of the neighbors who literally held him there until the police showed up. Now, on January 4th, 1962, Tony is actually convicted of assault and burglary for that specific incident, and he is given a 1-year sentence and 3 years probation. In 1963, Tony actually gets married, and he ends up having 3 children. And he is also like a super heavy drug user at the time. And this led to him having really, really, really bizarre behavior and also being super fucking irresponsible, which puts a huge strain on his marriage because, he's wasting funds. He's not there for his family, as drug addicts.
Like more bizarre than standing over a girl.
Well, that was his past.
Yeah.
Now, the couple, they end up actually separating, and Tony goes on and does his own thing. So they're together All this shit goes down, and his wife's like, we can't do this. We have 3 children together. You're fucking irresponsible. You're basically not helping, so hit the road, buddy. And he's like, cool, peace, bye. And he just goes on and does his life. Now, in June of 1966, Tony brings 2 girls back to his house. This was Diane Federoff and Bonnie Williams. Now, he tells them that he's going to go ahead and bring them to Pennsylvania because he's going on a road trip to California. And he's like, I'll stop in Pennsylvania, I'll drop you guys off, and then I'll continue my journey on to California by myself. And they're like, cool. Well, what he later actually claims is that he actually brings the girls to Hayward, California instead of Pennsylvania. And that he says, that's where I left them. The problem is nobody had ever seen these girls again. They literally disappeared. And he's like, what? Like,
I don't know what to tell you.
I dropped them off in California. Well, 10 days after he picks them up, he actually ends up back in Massachusetts, and people are like, what the fuck? Like, I thought you were going on a road trip to California. And he's like, I dropped him off and came back. Like, basically, like they're gone. Then in August of 1967, Tony and a female acquaintance of his, they are actually hiking in the Truro woods. Now, Tony somehow shoots his friend that he's with an arrow. And he claims it was an accident. He apologized, and like life went on. Like it was like whatever. Nothing happened after that. Then by 1968, Tony's marriage is a complete fucking mess. It's actually believed that this is about the time that she officially files for divorce. And he also does a very short stint in jail for failing to pay child support. Then in January, he actually moves to the Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco. So he actually moves away from Massachusetts and goes into San Francisco. Now, at some point in 1968, he actually does return to Massachusetts. But when he returns, it is said that when he went, I think he returned to Massachusetts. And while he was there, he stole thousands and thousands of dollars of medical equipment. Because again, you have to remember, he's a drug addict. He's irresponsible as fuck. He's living his life. And so this is kind of, and remember the time, this is the fucking 60s, right? So he's kind of part of that hippie group, right? Like he's kind of into the hippie vibes. He's into like free will, free living. And so that's kind of what they did. They would steal to survive. So he stole like a ton of fucking medical equipment, which brings us to the murders, but we kind of already talked about something. Okay. No, this brings us to the murders. So it's actually
the ones that were proven, right? Because the other 2 we're pretty sure he did it, but we don't know yet.
We're going to talk about it. So it is actually believed that Tony's first victim was Bonnie Williams, which was one of the 2 women that he took, that he drove. It is believed that he also killed Diane Federoff during that same time frame. They don't know if it was together, whatever. They don't know. However, their bodies have never been found. They have never been they've not been found alive. But the consensus is based off the rest of this, as you hear the rest, based off the rest of their thought is that he killed them. They were the first 2 that he killed. Now, they then believe that his third victim was actually a woman named Barbara Spalding. Now, Barbara Spalding disappeared in 1968, and she actually disappears on the same day, weirdly enough, that Tony actually leaves Massachusetts to go to San Francisco. And her body has also never been found. So those 3 know there's not proof that he killed them, but the last person they were seen with was Tony. And then to find out that Tony ends up becoming a serial killer, it's kind of hard to think that he wouldn't have killed them.
Exactly.
There you go. So this brings us to May 24th, 1968. Sydney Monson, she's 18. She actually goes missing from her home in Provincetown. Now, she was last seen getting in a car with Tony because Tony's mom lived in Provincetown as well. And what ends up happening is they end up finding later, we'll get into later, but I'll tell you how she was killed. Tony shoots her, kills her, and removes her heart. And the autopsy revealed after her body was found, the autopsy had revealed that she had been sexually abused after death. Okay. But I'm going to tell you right now that these people that I'm going to read about, they were not found right away. They were not found right after they went missing. So these women, so Sydney was missing for a while before her body was found. But I'm telling you how she was murdered, because we're going to have to get there at some point, and that just makes more sense to me.
Might as well talk about it now.
Then on September 10th, 1968, a woman named Susan Perry goes missing. And she has actually been reported as being one of Tony's lovers, because Tony was like a fucking playboy. So he had like lots of girlfriends, not really girlfriends, but like lovers. And so she was reported as being one of his lovers. Now, Tony is actually asked by people like, hey, where's Susan? We haven't seen her in a while, because, y'all were together all the time. And all of a sudden, like, you're out all the time. She's not with you. You're going to these parties and all these things. Where's Susan? To which he replies, she went to Mexico. Okay.
Or Thailand.
But again, back in the 60s, that's believable, right? Because, free will, free living, whatever. Her body is actually recovered on March 2nd of 1969. So it's like 9 months later, but her body is discovered. Now, on November 23rd, 1968, a woman named Christine Gallant is murdered, and she was known to be another one of Tony's girlfriends. Now, they were both really into the hippie scene, and they actually shared drugs, all kinds of drugs. And the details around her murder are not very well known. However, what is known is that she was found in the bathtub dead. Now, it is believed that she died of an overdose of barbiturates. However, what is unclear is if Tony actually orchestrated the overdose. It is believed that he actually overdosed her, maybe not on purpose, but also maybe on purpose because he's a serial killer. So it is believed. However, I honestly have a hard time believing that he did it on purpose because of the way that he murdered his other victims. I think if she was
just
murdered,
being left alone in the bathtub,
I just don't. Well, and just wait till you hear what he does and how. Just wait till you hear. Then on January 24th, 1969, a woman named Patricia Walsh and Mary Ann Wysocki, they go missing. Now, they had arrived in Provincetown for a weekend vacation to Cape Cod. Now, they checked into this home, kind of sounds like a B&B, like a bed and breakfast. They check into this home. The landlady, she's like, oh, hi, welcome. Let me show you to your room. So she's bringing them to the room, and there's this man in this same B&B, and she's like, oh, hey, by the way, he's also going to be staying here for a couple of days. This guy, this is Tony Costa. Tony, this is Patricia Walsh and Marianne Wysocki. And he's like, oh, hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. Cool. Life goes on. The girls go into their room, unpack their shit, enjoy their night. The morning after they check in, the two women had the two women, the landlady goes by the room that the two women are supposed to be staying in, and she sees that there's a note like pinned to their door. Now the note says, could you possibly give me a ride to Truro early in the morning with a question mark, signed Tony. Okay, fair. So he's asking the girls like, hey, you guys have a car? I don't. Can I get it? Can I hitch a ride? Now later that afternoon, there's a woman who actually says that she did see the two girls in the blue Volkswagen Beetle that belonged to Patricia, and they did see a man that matched the description of Tony in this car driving towards Truro, okay, which is an area apparently, I don't know.
Yeah, which fits with the letter.
Right. Now, both girls had plans later that day, like later in the day, and neither one of them showed up to their planned appointments. And so people are kind of like, that's weird. Like, what happened? But nobody really thinks too much because honestly, they're there on vacation. Like maybe they just got busy, right? Then the next day, there is another note on the girl's door when the landlady walks by. And the note says, we are checking out. Thank you for your many kindnesses. And it was signed Mary Ann and Pat. Now, it was immediately noticed by the landlady that this note was actually written on the same exact type of paper as the one that Tony had written the day before, which is obviously not paper that's in every room because she noticed that it was not, like she noticed that this paper was the same. If it was just like paper she put in the room, she wouldn't notice that, right? Now, she goes into the room and she sees that all of the girls' belongings are completely gone. So she's like, okay, I guess they did check out. Like, that's a weird way to check out. Like, just leave a note and bounce out. But maybe, maybe they had somewhere to be early in the morning or whatever. And so she didn't really think much of it. And so she's like, okay, they're gone, whatever. When Marianne and Patricia failed to return home to their families, it made their families, both the families, worried. So they immediately contact the police and they're like, listen, we have our 2 daughters. They went on a short weekend vacation to Cape Cod. We haven't heard from them, seen them. They're supposed to be back. They haven't come back. Something's not right. So they're filing a missing persons report, contacting the area of this area to look for potentially their daughters. On February 2nd, 1969, Patricia's Volkswagen is actually found in a wooded area near Pine Grove Cemetery in Truro. Now, there was also a report that Tony had actually used that car later that day and drove into Boston, and somebody saw him with it, like with this car. So the police are immediately kind of like, what the fuck? That's weird.
Why you in that car, fool?
Right, that's kind of weird. Now, on February 8th of 1969, a police officer is in the wooded area because at this point, they're like, okay, her car is there. We know it's her car. It's registered to her. She's nowhere to be found. We should probably search the woods. I don't know if they were searching for bodies or if they were searching for like maybe they got lost.
More clues or just anything.
So they're like, so they're searching. Well, a police officer starts to look. And he actually is really close to the area of Pine Grove Cemetery. And he ends up finding like this weird indentation in the ground. And he's like, that seems like a really out of place because this is like a wooded area that people really don't come to. So there shouldn't be these like indentation, like dug up areas. So he decides to start digging just a little bit to see if he finds anything. And as he's digging, he actually discovers a bag. And inside of the bag is literally body parts. And so he's like, oh, shit. So he takes the body parts, brings them to whoever the fuck he's bringing them to. They take all of the body parts out and they actually find that there are 8 separate pieces of body in this bag. And they discover that this is a woman. It is the body of a woman, but it is not Marianne or Patricia.
So it's like they found his dumping grounds.
They actually find that this is a woman named Susan Perry. And Susan Perry, if you don't remember, is the girlfriend that he claimed went to Mexico.
Yep.
So now at this time, the police start questioning. I mean, they're already kind of questioning Tony because they're like, you were seen with the car. You were last seen with these 2 women. Also, you were last seen with a couple other people in this town. And we're trying to figure out what the fuck's going on.
Like, it's just a bad coincidence.
So they're already like talking to him anyways. And he's actually not very good at answering their questions like at all, to the point where they ask him one thing, he says it. They ask him it again, and he says something different. He gives very, very inconsistent answers.
That's what happens when you lie.
Yeah. Well, and if you really think about it, at this point, they don't have proof that it's Tony because it's not like it's his property. He doesn't own the land. They just happen to see, supposedly he was seen driving this Volkswagen in Boston.
It's all circumstantial.
Right. So you can't really arrest him. So they're just asking questions and kind of keeping their eyes out, right, on what suspicions shall we find. Then on March 3rd, 1969, there's a telegram that actually arrives to Tony's mother's home in Provincetown. This telegram says, quote, "What happened? We waited as planned. Is everything all right? We'll meet you as scheduled in New York City. Love, Pat and Marianne." So the police take the telegram. Now, I was not alive when telegrams were a thing. I mean, I'm sure, I don't even know if you can do telegrams now. But in my brain, I think
it's just like a letter.
Okay, so that's what I thought. Okay, I thought a telegram was just like a letter. No. I mean, it is. However, what I'm gathering from it is a telegram is made by phone. So somebody calls, maybe the post office, or calls somebody and tells them a message. They type the message out and then they send it.
Interesting.
Okay. So because of this, the police immediately go, well, let's backtrack. So they discover that the letter is sent from New York and there's a phone number. So that's what I'm saying. Like, there is a phone number and city of where the letter came from. So it's not like it was handwritten. It was like it was called in. There's so the letter came from New York and it was a phone number that they looked in the phone number and they're like, well, this is kind of funny because this phone number is a phone number that the only people that we've talked to so far would be Tony is one of them. And Tony's the only one who has access to this phone number. So that's weird that Tony has access to a phone number that sent a telegram supposedly from Marianne and Pat, but he hasn't seen them. That's weird. So the police decide they're going to go ahead and search the rest of the Truro field because they're like, now we're starting to really get suspicious because Tony has been seen multiple times with women and they disappear. And we just recently found Susan Perry, who happened to be his one of his girlfriends that he said went to Mexico, but he doesn't know what happened to her. And now we're getting telegrams from also a number that he would have access to in New York. Okay. The other thing is they also had been told that Tony was known to have a very large marijuana garden in this Truro woods as well. And he was told this by multiple people because he had brought people out there because he kind of felt like it was his, not his sanctuary, but like a safe space. But he would tell people he was afraid to go out there by himself. So he would bring people out there with him, but he was happy out there. And so all these people are like, no, like that's weird because Tony's got like a whole marijuana like farm out there hidden like in the Truro field.
Yeah.
So on March 5th, 1969, they actually end up uncovering the torso and head of Mary Ann Wysocki. And in another area nearby, they find the body of Patricia Walsh, and she had also been dismembered. Now, underneath her body was the body of Sydney Monson, the 18-year-old girl that went missing. Mary Ann and Patricia had actually been killed by gunshots by gunshots to their head and their neck. And there was a .22 caliber pistol that was found near their bodies. And this was later identified as a gun that Tony owned. So now now it's no longer circumstantial.
Yeah,
there's a lot of evidence. There. It was also reported that their hearts had been removed from their bodies. Now the autopsies also showed that they had signs of postmortem sexual abuse as well. So on March 6th, 1969, Tony is arrested and he is charged with the murder of Mary Ann Wysocki, Patricia Walsh, Sydney Monson, and Susan Perry. Now on May 6th of 1970, so like a year later, he is actually found guilty of all 4 murders and he is sentenced to life in prison in Walpole Correctional Institution. On May 12th, 1974, so 4 years later, Tony is found hanging in his cell and his death was declared a suicide and he was 29 years old when he died.
Bitch.
I think it's weird it took 4 years, to be honest. I'm not even going to lie right now.
Yeah.
I don't understand that, but maybe he just like hated his life all of a sudden. I don't know. But I do have some shots and I actually have quite a bit of shots, but yeah, I have some shots. Okay. So Tony was actually reportedly like a super like charming man and he was really good looking. And so it was not much of a surprise that he was able to find women and like lure them and like kill them. Like he wasn't weird, like scary looking. I saw a picture of him. I have a couple of pictures of him, but the one that I saw that I was like, oh, I could see it, is he has like longer hair and he was wearing like that bandana. Like think of a 70s person with long hair and a bandana.
Yeah, we've had a couple of people that have been like lookers.
They're lookers. And so he was able to lure people in and then he could just kill them. Like people trusted him. They really like Manson, like, right? Like he had that personality that people just really liked. Now he had actually been labeled by some people, some like professionals, as a true sociopath because he could put the charm on these women. He could lure them in and make them trust him, but he had 0 qualms about killing them and 0 remorse about killing them and 0 emotions about killing them. Now, shortly after being arrested, he actually was diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder. Now, for those of you that don't know, if you're new here, I am a psychology major. And one of the things that I actually did a ginormous presentation on was schizophrenia. Please do not mix schizophrenia with schizoid disorder, schizoid personality disorder. They're very different things. So first of all, with people with schizophrenia, just remember, we have a lot of serial killers actually that are diagnosed as schizophrenic.
Yeah.
They have hallucinations,
People are talking to them.
They have auditory hallucinations or sometimes visual. They have confusions. They have paranoia. They have all these things. Somebody with schizoid personality disorder is not like that at all. Let me tell you what schizoid personality is. I actually have, it's funny because I have something to say about it, but I'm going to give you kind of what the signs and symptoms of schizoid personality disorder so you know. So schizoid personality disorder is when a person shows very little interest in or very little interest, if any interest at all, in building relationships with people. That could be friendships, that could be relationships like sexual, romantic, whatever. They want to be alone. They want to be by themselves. And it's really hard for them to express emotions. So schizoid personality disorder, they are not detached from reality like schizophrenics are. They do not have paranoid beliefs and hallucinations like schizophrenics, people with schizophrenia do. They do make sense when they're talking, although they might speak very monotone. Now, it actually resembles very, very closely to somebody with autism. What I don't understand is in the field of psychology, they have a tendency to put umbrellas over things. Autism is an umbrella term now. There used to be Asperger's and autism were separate. It's all under one umbrella. ADHD, there was ADD and ADHD. Now it's all ADHD. So what I don't understand is if schizoid personality represents and looks a lot like autism, why is schizoid personality disorder not just under the same umbrella as autism? That's a question not any of you can answer. I'm just curious myself as somebody who did go through school for psychology. I'm very interested because they change the DSM-5 all the time. So I'm trying to figure out what's that boundary that you could find, or what's that line that makes them autistic versus schizoid personality disorder. I don't know. I'm going to have to go get a DSM-5 now and look it up because I'm very interested. And for those of you who don't know, the DSM-5 is the diagnostic manual they use to diagnose people with mental disorders. And I had one, and then it was really expensive when I was in college, so I rented it, and I regret that decision my entire life because I loved that book with every part of my body. But anyways, because I'm fucking
maybe
weird.
Next year for your birthday.
Because I'm a fucking weird, because I don't know why I like to read about mental disorders, but I do. Anyways, so he had schizoid personality disorder. Just so to push that through, probably he wasn't a sociopath. He might look like one without emotions, but he has schizoid personality disorder. Now, after Tony's arrested, he actually claimed to the police that there was a maniac on the loose out there. That's what he tells them. There's a maniac on the loose out here after he's arrested. Now, some of the bodies that had been recovered had bite marks on them, which is what led them to the nickname of Cape Cod Vampire.
I was wondering when we were going to get to that point.
Yeah, and there's actually a couple of pictures of, like, obviously it's body parts, but it's like an arm, and it's like a clear as day fucking bite mark. It's not like a little bit, like that shit would have hurted. If they were alive when that happened, that would be enough to fucking want to kill somebody because it's like damn near puncturing the skin. That's how hard that bite was. Now, there was a book that was written about Tony, and it's actually called Helltown, and it is written by a man named Casey Sherman. Now, Casey Sherman literally studied Tony, studied his crimes, studied everything. And he said, after he wrote the book, after he studied, after he did all that, he said, these women were not just murdered. They were brutalized. And they looked like they had been attacked by a great white shark, not a human killer. So his point is when they found these bodies, none of them looked like what you would like. How do you say this? He mutilated and hurt them so badly, they were unrecognizable.
Damn.
He also said that in his belief, Tony Costa is the most vicious serial killer since Jack the Ripper. And for those of you who don't know who Jack the Ripper is, they don't know who he actually was, but Jack the Ripper killed women in England, and he cut them from literally like pubic bone to torso, and he would pull out their insides and toss it over their shoulders. So he is saying that these women that they found, because he looked at crime scene photos, the guy who wrote the book.
Yeah.
He's saying based off those photos, he is the most vicious serial killer since Jack the Ripper, saying he has never seen crime scene photos or women or men or people murdered to the extent since Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, not really wonder, but like, how were they dismembered?
Yeah. You can look them up. You can look up. I don't really feel like doing that, to be honest with you. And then Tony also wrote a book while he was in jail called Resurrection. And in this book, apparently it describes the murders of Marianne and Patricia as being committed by a friend named Carl. And he also claims that the deaths of Susan and Sydney were due to drug overdoses, and that it was also Carl who dismembered their bodies. We all know there is no Carl.
He's Carl.
He's Carl. We all know there's no Carl. And then that book actually, somebody tried to publish it, and no go. Which to be honest,
they were like, no.
Good. Or maybe they did, but it got banned. There was something about it, like it was very controversial. Now, there was also another book written about Tony by a woman named Liza Rodman, and her book is called The Babysitter, My Summers with a Serial Killer. Now, her book is actually about her and her sister's life growing up because Tony was their babysitter during the summers when they were younger. And she said that she went to that Truro field many a times with him because he told her, I don't like going by myself, but I love being here. So he would babysit them in the summers when he was home at his mom's house. And he would take them to this field. And she's like, he was so nice. And they were interviewing her about it. And she said, they were asking, like, were you shocked? Like when you found out that he was a serial killer? And she goes, I was shocked until I started having nightmares. And in my nightmares, this person, like, she was talking about what her nightmares were. And she goes, when I realized that my nightmares were about Tony, I wasn't as shocked. And she goes, and he never did anything. Like she says all the time, he never did anything to me or my sister. She goes, I think we were too young for him. And she's like, but he was the nicest person. And she said that his mother was extremely nice. And she also said, growing up, Tony and Tony's mom were like their safe space away from their mom. They grew up in a rough life and he was like a safety for them. So she said, it's really hard for me to look at this person and hate him like everybody else does. She's like, because on the one hand, I will always remember the Tony who babysat us and took care of us and literally made sure that we were safe every single summer while my mom was not around. And then there's this other guy who it's like, oh my God, look at what he did to these women.
Yeah,
I couldn't
totally,
even imagine
like,
the fucking mind fuck that would do for somebody. I genuinely
it'd make you not trust anybody ever.
I fully plan on reading this book. I have not read it yet because I found this book at the very end of my research. I fully plan on reading this book because I'm very curious on how, because she's not going to talk about Tony the murderer. She's going to talk about Tony and her life with Tony. And to be honest, I should have read the book before I did this because it'd probably give me a shit ton of background on him. I just really wanted to talk about it first. And so I didn't want to wait, but I fully plan on getting the book.
No, it's good. After you read the book, we'll do a little piece on it, a little puff piece.
I'm kind of like, I can either audible it and just listen to it or I'll just buy it and read it. Either way, I really, really want to read that book. I almost read the Helltown book too, but then I was like, man, if I read the Helltown book, I got to wait to do my episode on Tony because that would give me a lot more information. And I was just kind of like, I'll still read the Helltown book, but yeah. And then final shot is Tony has actually been suspected of killing another 16 women along the west coast of the United States. Literally just based off the fact that he was seen with them, that the MO is kind of the same. He's seen with them and then all of a sudden they disappear and they have no idea, but they haven't found a bunch of people. But that 16 women, I believe actually includes Bonnie and the other women.
From the very beginning.
Yeah, but still, he's only known for sure for killing 4. But the ways that, and again, the way that he killed these women, dismembered them, all this stuff, that's why I have a hard time believing that he killed his girlfriend in the bathtub. Because I don't think he would have left her there.
Like he's so brutal with all the other ones.
Yeah, I don't think he would have left her there.
He wouldn't have just been
especially because Sydney Brown was found. Sydney Brown was also one of his girlfriends. So he killed her and dismembered her. So you can't tell me, because, some people are like, oh, well, maybe it was because, that was like his girlfriend. No, because he did it to his girlfriend before, to his lover girlfriend before. And really, they say girlfriend, but from everything I read, he didn't really have girlfriends. Like he wasn't good at having relationships with people. So
I mean, he did get married and have 3 kids
and divorced.
Yeah,
because he fucking sucked as a person when it comes to relationships. which partially was because of the schizoid disorder, right?
Yeah.
Like he's not able to have good relationships with people. So when people say, oh, it's his girlfriend, like, yeah, he might be having a girlfriend so he can boink, right? Like, so he can do the thing.
Yeah,
But-
for people who don't know what boink is, it's sexual relations.
Well, I don't want to say that. I just say boink.
I know. I just figured I'd tell the
You
readers.
say boink. Why is it a big deal if I say boink?
I don't say it on here. I think about our friends that are, maybe in different countries that might not like boink, like to get bonked on the head or something. Like, just trying to clear it up.
Okay, well, yeah. I'm just saying he might have been in like that kind of stuff, and like for the girls that died of like drug overdoses, he was totally into the drug scene. So they might have just been like, they might have been just doing the nasty. Is that better? They might have been doing the nasty while they're high as fuck, and that's all he cared about with them. And for those of you who don't know what doing the nasty is, it's sexual relations.
Sexual relations.
Like, seriously. I'm just trying to be PG, okay?
Yeah, listen to the rest of the
I
podcast
haven't
and tell
even
us we're trying.
sworn that much today.
Fuck that.
You might be, but I'm trying to turn a new leaf, folks.
Yeah, we'll see how
I'm
long
not.
that
I'm
lasts.
not really. I just don't.
Wasn't much to cuss about this
I'm
time.
just toning down my anger. That's all. That's it. Anyways, so yeah, that's it. That's Tony Costa. I think he's definitely responsible for more than 4 murders, but I do not think he's responsible for the murders of or the murder of his girlfriend in the bathtub. That is it. That's all I can tell you.
But we'll never know.
We'll never know because he died.
Yep.
And that's the other thing is there is some controversy that his murder was actually not, or his suicide was not
Wasn't a
suicide. It was
suicide.
murder.
Yep.
So it's like, there's a lot of controversy around this guy.
Which,
So,
if it was,
well, I
too
mean,
bad.
dude, you're still a serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like, I'm not going to
Still
feel
a shithead.
bad for you. Like, I'm not going to feel bad. Like, it is what it is. And you did terrible things to these women. So no, I don't feel bad for you. But I wish there was more information that we could find out. And I do wish that we would know if there were women that, the women that are missing, if their bodies were ever found, or who knows?
Yep.
But anyways, that's where we're at. That's where we be at. And if
Do
you,
the usual.
yeah,
Follow.
if you
subscribe,
if you like what you hear,
all the fun stuff.
follow us. Thank you for listening. We appreciate your support, your continued support. It's amazing. If you're new here, welcome. Thank you for listening. And this is the part where I'm going to say goodbye.
And I'll follow it up with the bye-bye.
Remember to lock your doors and bar your windows. Until next time.